The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
We have a lot of calls to get to today and so many other things, but I did receive a voicemail yesterday that I found endlessly fascinating that I want to play for you. This is from someone who works at a fast food restaurant who tells his story and tells us about the fact that he has been stealing change. I'll let him tell the story. Take a listen to this.
Hey, David. I am a fast food worker. I work for probably the worst fast food place of all time, McDonald's. And I work full time. And I live alone, and I found myself in a position to where I simply cannot afford to pay my rent, pay water bill and electricity bill, and, still be able to eat and, just live life necessities. So what I've decided to do at my job was I work in the drive-thru and at the cash register, and at the drive-thru cash register. And I get about, I say, 200 customers every day. And I'm handling all this money every day. And what I've done in the past few months I've been working was I'll take a quarter to 50 cents from a customer's change, and I would keep that change. And I would have about 15, 20 bucks, which is not that much money at the end of the day, to buy food, or I would save up that money in order to pay my light bill so I wouldn't have to sleep in the dark. I'm here in Texas, and it is very hot here in Texas, and living in a house with no electricity, no air, is not fun. Then I'll have to go to work, and so, yeah, and I'm starting to feel bad because, stealing is bad, of course, we always hear that, but I do this to sustain myself. I'm taking, McDonald's is a corporation that makes billions of dollars every single year, and I'm getting paid minimum wage and leaving work, not having lights at home, having to sleep in the dark, and not having food, going starving. I work at a place where there's nothing but food, and I go home hungry. And so, yes, I do take a quarter to 50 cents from a customer's change and keep that for to pay for necessities. So, I'm feeling really conflicted about this. I don't know if I should keep doing it. I'll probably get fired eventually. But, what are your thoughts on this? Is it a bad thing? Is it a bad thing on society? Because I'm pretty sure the quarter or the 50 cents that I'm stealing from a random customer, that's not breaking their banks. That they're not going to go. We know your thoughts, David. This is really conflicting me. Thanks.
This is so complex, right? I mean, on the one hand, there's this age-old moral question of if you're stealing food to feed your family, or in this case, yourself, or if you are stealing in order to buy food to feed your family or yourself, that's a type of theft that many people find to be morally permissible in many cases. We can also imagine many people who would not feel bad if it was McDonald's as a corporation that was being shortchanged of 25 or 50 cents per customer. At the same time, many McDonald's are franchise owned. So if he was stealing the money from the register, then it would be a local franchisee who was being shortchanged 25 or 50 cents. But that's not what he is doing. He is taking the money from the change due to the customer. And we know that poor people are disproportionately likely to go to places like McDonald's. So it is possible. Clearly they have enough money to go to McDonald's, but it is also possible that that 25 or 50 cents is coming out of the pocket of someone who really doesn't have very much extra money. This is very complex, and what it gets me back to is, the moral judgment. Is this a bad person because he needs to eat and have electricity? No, he's not a bad person because of that. This issue of who is missing the money most, I don't know the answer. What I know is, if you're a responsible worker who gets up and goes to work and is in the restaurant and you're working full time, you deserve to not need to steal to have food or electricity. And that really is getting at the core of the problem, which is these jobs, which we know are increasingly automatable. Order taking at a drive-through is a job that technology is going to figure out, and it already has figured out at many McDonald's and Wendy's and other stores. So the real issue is that we have these jobs where this is not a lazy person. This is someone who's showing up to work. They have a job, and they don't even have the money to feed themselves or always keep the electricity on. That's sort of the base problem, isn't it? Not the decision about whether to keep 25 cents from someone's change to feed yourself, although we could go into the morality of that as well.
Yeah, certainly. If we could solve that problem, no one would need to steal. And I would feel, if it were me, I would feel better about it if I were stealing from the register, even if it harmed the franchise owner, because that is someone who could decide to pay their employees more than minimum wage, and is choosing not to. And so most likely someone who does not give a crap about you, just like McDonald's as a corporation does not give a crap about any of their employees.
So is it fair to say, Louis, that your view on the sort of ethics of theft depend on who is being stolen from to some degree?
To some degree, of course. In this case, it's the customer, and well, I don't like that. But if you absolutely have to do that to survive, what can I say? My advice to you is to relentlessly search for a job that will pay you more. That's my advice.
Yeah, and obviously easier said than done, and easier said than done in terms of finding one, right? The searching is easier than the finding, for sure, especially depending on where in this country you live. Tough phone call. I'm interested in hearing thoughts from our audience on this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Today's new member of the day is Leslie Kaluza. Leslie, thank you so much for being a David Pakman Show member. Sign up at davidpakman.com/membership. On that note, let's take some phone calls. 617-830-4750 is the number. It's always great to hear from people around the country. Who's on first today?
Yes, hello, David. This is Jared from Downingtown, PA.
How are you?
Pretty good. I have a question for you and Louis. I was discussing recently, because of the Orlando shooting and ISIS and the whole concept of gay rights and all that stuff. If you or Louis were in Syria, and I was discussing this with my boyfriend, and if you were in Syria, which side would you be fighting on the ground if you were there, hypothetically?
Well, I would not be fighting for Bashar al-Assad, right? I mean, I think that would be clear, although I understand that by being in the opposition, I would sort of implicitly be aligned with a number of elements that I don't find particularly pleasing, right, Louis? I mean, I think I would try to not be in Syria, and I would probably only be there if I survived a plane crash that happened to be flying over Syria. I would avoid going to Syria pretty directly and proactively.
We turn my mic on, of course, yes, but I would agree with you that I would certainly not be fighting for the government, for Assad, and unfortunately, yes, you do align yourself with some people you don't want to be partners with, but I suppose I would just try to join up with what we refer to as moderate rebels.
What do you think? I mean, who would you be fighting with?
I asked my boyfriend, who's African American, he's gay, he's an atheist, he's liberal, and he basically said that he would be fighting for Assad, not because he likes Assad, it's just because he's the lesser of several evils in the war. And because Assad, if you live under Assad, you can be gay, you can have bars, as long as you don't talk about politics or anything like that. As for me, it's hard to say. Maybe the Kurds or something along that line. It's very hypothetical for me, but I thought it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, well, at least one black, gay, liberal American would be supporting Bashar al-Assad if they ended up in Syria. Very, very interesting. Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you, Liz.
All right. Let's take the next call, 617-830-4750. Who's on the line?
Hey, David. It's Zach from Nebraska again.
Zach from Nebraska. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
What can we do for you today?
Hey, Well, today I wanted to talk about Sam Seder, actually.
Okay.
So I recently watched an episode of The Majority Report, and a caller called into his show, and they told him to watch out for you because they thought you would turn conservative.
Interesting.
And then what the other thing is that he kept calling you David Pachman, which Sam corrected him several times to call you correctly by Pachman.
Yeah.
But he continued to call you by that.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw a couple minutes of this clip. And so, I mean, is the question whether I'm going to turn conservative any day? I mean, the answer to that one's no. I don't know if you had something else specific that you wanted me to address about it.
No, I just wanted to see. I wanted to think if you. I wanted to see if you thought that was pretty absurd or not.
The pronunciation David Pachman, or that I'm going to turn conservative someday?
Oh, no, the fact that you would turn conservative. I mean, like, there's other progressive hosts out there that people watch, and then they somehow watch your videos and then think, oh, yeah, David Pachman's going to become conservative one day. That sounds absurd to me.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, really, even the opinions I have, which people believe are more conservative, in my view, I hold because I associate them with actual progressivism as opposed to supposed progressivism. So I don't see it happening, Zach, but you know, it's certainly an interesting idea. I should go back and listen to that entire call.
Yeah, I recommend it. I think it's pretty funny.
All right, very good. Zach from Nebraska, thank you for the call. Let's continue, Lewis. 617-830-4750 is the number, and I have, who's joining me now?
Justin Coleman.
All right, I could not quite hear your name.
Justin.
Justin. Okay, and where are you calling from, Justin?
Yes. From Southern Illinois.
All right, what can we do for you today?
Let's talk about Tomi Lahren and how she's trying to put together a highlight reel for Fox News to get a job later on. Because there's no way that she always puts down a black person trying to point out real problems here in America, no matter what. So
okay, yeah. So for people who don't know, this is she's what, sort of like a commentator of sorts, right?
Yeah, on the Blaze,
right?
On the Fox Network.
And her thing is, you believe that she is being deliberately inflammatory by arguing with black people on Fox News to put together a reel to then use for something in the future.
Yes, obviously, because when Jesse Williams went on his rant about Tamir Rice and all that during the BET Awards,
yeah,
she disregarded what he said and basically just said, just because a black man is unarmed doesn't mean that he's not reaching for a gun or being hostile.
Yeah, a confusing statement to many people, for sure. I don't doubt it. I mean, yeah, going on Fox and saying outrageous stuff is a great way to put together a reel, and you can roll that right into employment at all sorts of right-wing media. So I don't think what you're suggesting is crazy, Justin. Thank you so much for the call.
Thank you.
All right. Justin from Illinois. We will continue to take calls, 617-830-4750. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking to now?
I'm from Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Where in Mass are you calling from?
Boston.
Boston. Well, that's where we are too. We're all right. Well, let's continue. What can we do for you?
I'm saying Hillary Clinton is more dangerous than Donald Trump.
I'm sorry. I could not quite hear that. Is something what more than Donald Trump?
No, I'm saying Hillary Clinton is more dangerous than Donald Trump.
You think she's more dangerous? Oh, okay. On what issues is she more dangerous?
It's just like that she's under FBI investigation, and we don't know what's behind that.
Well, we sort of do, right? I mean, we know at least what the investigation is regarding, but does being under an investigation by definition make someone dangerous?
Yeah, because I think like if we have an unknown, and the person could be guilty of something we don't even know yet, we should know before we put them in office.
But people are innocent until proven guilty, right? I mean, for now, there hasn't even been an accusation. And even if there were, then it would have to be proven. And all along, that person would be, in the legal sense, completely innocent. You agree?
Yeah.
Okay. But you just feel she's dangerous.
Yeah, because I still know what would be behind that.
Okay. Lewis, what do you think about this?
Well, you certainly don't like unknowns. Nobody likes unknowns, but it's just that. It's an unknown. So we don't know, and believe me, I'm no fan of Hillary Clinton, but on this issue, I think I'll give her the benefit of the doubt, but for now.
Yeah, I mean, if unknowns are dangerous, Trump's a total unknown, right? I mean, Hillary Clinton's basically lived a public life for decades, and everything she's done during that time, with the exception of stuff that's classified as Secretary of State, is basically on record. We've got no clue what Trump would do, right? I mean, the guy has zero experience, and he's given 10 different positions on just about every issue. Isn't that the real unknown?
Yeah, and you could say like he's under trial. But the thing is, like, I think like as far as like being innocent until proven guilty, like we should at least find out the final verdict before putting someone in, like presidency.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the whole thing about having an independent judiciary and investigations is they do their investigations on the timeline that they believe. I don't think it would be logical for them to be swayed in how they do their investigation, to the extent they're investigating Hillary criminally because there's an election coming up. I think that would be more disturbing in a number of ways. Thank you for the call from Boston. Always great to hear from people in the great city of Boston. All right. And we will take another call now. Name and town.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Jackson from St. Louis.
Jackson from St. Louis. I can hear you're coming through so clearly that I am thrilled to have you on.
Great. So I was calling about down ticket races, and I wanted to sort of give an example of how a Trump presidency is directly affecting a down ticket race that isn't really supposed to be competitive.
Okay.
Here in Missouri, we have for the Senate seat it's going to be run between Roy Blunt, who's the incumbent Republican, and he's old Republican family, and Jason Kander, who is a young Democratic. He's the Attorney General for the state. He would be the youngest elected senator in over 50 years. So, and he was an Afghanistan war veteran. But originally the polling was around 11% for Roy Blunt in the lead, and Missouri's gone straight Republican since 2000, outside of McCaskill's Senate seat. And Roy Blunt is not going to the convention. And he was asked about it, saying his family had gone to every single Republican convention for 60 some odd years. I'm on both of their email lists, and Jason Kander just keeps hammering him on that. And then another example is Roy Blunt picked up a Trump line of attack about the radical Islam debate, something that he had never really been a huge proponent of. And he tweeted something about that, to which Jason Kander said, I volunteered after 9/11 to fight in Iraq, so I think I know what radical Islamic terrorism is. And he's just completely destroying Roy Blunt on all of these Donald Trump talking points, and Roy Blunt has to keep pulling back and back. And it's really interesting to see on a sort of a small-scale level exactly how each individual race is directly affected by it.
Yeah, what I'm not totally understanding, though, if I can ask one question here, is on the one hand, Blunt is not going to the convention, I understand, in protest of Trump, but at the same time, he's using Trump attack lines. So is he being hurt or helped by Trump? I'm not understanding.
He's being hurt by Trump because he can't figure out a game plan with it. It's the point I was trying to, or at least I think I see in Roy Blunt, is some of the things he's trying to do to appeal to these Trump voters, because he's directly not endorsing him, not going to the convention, but obviously trying to pull in that Trump support.
I see what you're saying.
It's that confusion on these small levels of, well, if I pull away from Trump, do I lose my base support? And on a small level, you need those base support, because these people are not necessarily going to vote for Trump.
Right.
They'll vote for Trump. They might not vote for you. But if you use that and try to pick up the support, the rational majority thinks, oh my goodness, this guy is not nearly qualified. Even if they like Trump on a small level, for whatever reason in people's minds, it seems to be more applicable to him.
Got it. All right. Yeah. Well, Republican confusion, absolutely the theme of 2016. Thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate it. Let's see who else is on the line, Lewis. 617-830-4750. Who's on with me now?
Hello?
Hello. Yeah, you're barely audible. Who am I talking to?
This is Adrian.
Adrian. Okay, go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, what's one thing you've learned from starting this program?
One thing I've learned?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I guess I'll pick something.
Maybe pick the most important thing you've learned.
The most important thing I've learned is you cannot rely on your equipment every single day. Sometimes the equipment fails and there's no show. Haven't we learned that, Lewis? I mean, that's an important lesson, I think, for everybody.
In a business like this, it's always important to be able to, adapt and adjust when something fails. In some cases, there's nothing you can do, but fortunately, we are able to save the program if that happens.
Now, from a political standpoint, I've learned probably about half of politicians seem to be playing characters where it's not even, you never essentially see the real person in public. Would you say that's fair, Lewis? I mean, when we talk about interviewing candidates and elected officials, the sort of off-camera person is often drastically different than the public persona.
I feel you're being generous at half. Okay. It may be a higher percentage than that, and it's true. Totally different people. Yeah. They are characters, and oftentimes their voting record probably isn't even
reflective of the
real person.
Yeah,
right?
No, I agree. Great question. Thank you so much for the call.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Phones are open, 617-830-4750. We are taking your calls, and I have someone joining me. Who is it?
Hello, this is Jack from Denver, Colorado.
Jack from Denver, great.
I was wondering if you were thinking about how Trump's lawsuit plans and opening up the libel laws are really anti-freedom of speech, and yet a lot of his followers and that kind of thing proclaim themselves as defenders of the Constitution without even really knowing what it means most of the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can go well beyond. Much of the stuff that Trump is proposing is either against standing policy in the U.S. or flat out against the law or unconstitutional. And certainly the entire concept of, quote, opening up libel laws so that the bad media people can be sued and blah, blah, blah. I mean, we have libel laws, right? And there's already sort of a standard where, as a general thing, people have freedom of speech. And if you're in media, there's freedom of the press. And unless it can be shown that there was, number one, sort of intent to harm via misstatements, and that the person whom was that was the victim of those lies was materially harmed in some way, right? So if I come on the air and say something that's untrue about Obama, even if I know that it's true, right? So I do have sort of deliberate malice and knowledge that I'm lying. Me as David Pakman, I'm not going to harm President Obama in any demonstrable way. And thus you wouldn't be able to sue me. President Obama wouldn't be able to sue me because I just have no impact on the life and reputation of President Obama. So we sort of have a system in place for that. And yeah, you're absolutely right that sometimes the Trump supporters seem to find these talking points he gives appealing because it seems right and he's being tough and he's going to go up against the evil so-called liberal media. But yeah, it's pretty much nonsense. So I totally share your concern.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
No, yeah, I mean, libel, no, it's not never mind.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the call. Okay, Lewis, let's take a break. I would call this a success today, and we will take more calls next week. Great interview coming up after the break.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
For our classic interview today, we're going back to 2012 when I interviewed Martin Butterick. This is sort of a follow-up to our interview about the impact of casinos to populations in cities and communities that we recently did with Robert Williams. It seems like a great follow-up now to go back to Martin Butterick, who really is going to expand on some of the things Robert Williams alluded to in terms of how the House has an advantage, games, and how casinos have become very, very good at identifying players who are trying to game the systems. We've talked to Lewis about various systems that he has tried and become aware of and how essentially none of them really work. So we will go back to my interview in February of 2012 with Martin Butterick. Still one of my favorite interviews. Martin Butterick's joining us. He was a professional gambler for 10 years. He also ran a professional gambling team. Martin, I get tons of emails about casinos, about gambling, about the ethics of both running a casino and of being a gambler. I don't even know where to start, but I think a good place is, are there certain casino games where the advantage for the casino is minimized, or is it basically the same across the board?
With craps, if you bet on the correct combination of bets there, you can get the house's advantage down almost to zero.
So when you were a professional gambler, what were your games?
We would primarily play blackjack. That is the one game where the player can get an advantage over the house. And so that was the game that we focused on.
Okay, so explain that, because I think blackjack, in the emails I get, is the one people most seem to think that by using a system or using a method or that there is a way to get an advantage over the house. And I don't understand it, because my understanding is if you tie the house, you actually lose your bet. So how can you take that back mathematically and get the edge back?
Okay, well, there's a lot of information to answer that question, but
yeah.
Kind of in a nutshell, the reason that blackjack is different than all the other games is that the outcome of the next hand is partially determined by the outcome of the last hand. And the reason for that is because the cards that were dealt out during the last hand are no longer available. So if you're playing from a 6-deck shoe, you play a few hands, some cards are gone. Now there's kind of a different deck that you're playing with, as opposed to the one that would be, a 6 full decks. And there are certain situations then where the advantage goes over to the player because of the composition of the deck remaining.
Okay, so are we getting basically into the idea of card counting, keeping track of the cards that have been dealt and kind of keeping a mental tally of what's still left there or not? Is that where you're getting at with this?
Yeah, that's the most common way to use that information, is through card counting. It's kind of the easiest way. It's the more reliable way. But nowadays, it's the one that the casinos are also the most familiar with. So that's kind of a double-edged sword there.
Okay, so how does that work? In other words, number one, what are you really counting when you are card counting? Are you counting face cards? And also, why is that not allowed? And how is it enforceable, especially?
So in card counting, basically what you're doing is you're counting the ratio of high cards to low cards. And so as low cards come out of the deck and the deck becomes more, kind of more weighted towards those 10s and aces, the advantage shifts over to the player. And the other way around, if the aces start coming out in greater proportion and there's more little cards left, then the house's advantage tends to go up from there. So the reason that card counting is not allowed is because these casinos are private businesses and they have the right, just like any private business, to refuse service for a customer. 30, 40 years ago, they might have thrown you in jail for card counting. Nowadays, that's not going to happen, but they will ask you just not to play blackjack and allow you to play any of the other games in the casino.
So as casino security has gotten more sophisticated over time, what's the easiest way to spot someone who is card counting? I mean, is it someone who looks pensive? There has to be more to it than that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, really, they're way more sophisticated now than they used to be. They've gotten down to the thing that matters the most is when a player is raising his bet. And that's how a card counter is going to get his advantage, because you're not going to have the advantage in the majority of hands. It's going to be a minority of times when you have that opportunity. And so to make up for all of the hands where you're playing at a disadvantage, you need to be able to bet a lot more when that opportunity arises. And so with the advent of computers and automated software, casinos are now able to just track a person's betting and see what the advantages that they have on each hand and kind of evaluate them that way.
Okay, and is this done, so in order to do that, does that mean every hand that is being dealt, every player's activity is being tracked by some kind of software, or is it more the dealer's sense of what's going on and maybe getting their supervisor involved to kind of oversee what's happening?
I would say that it's more the latter. It's more likely that the floor supervisor is going to select the individuals that he wants security to kind of focus on. Usually it's going to be the highest bettors, but it could be somebody that if the floor man notices some behavior that looks like a card counter, varying bets when small cards are gone, stuff like that, then they could focus on that person. I think there's just too much going on for the casinos to pay attention to everyone.
So then let's get to the next question, which is, are there so-called systems that are straightforward that do work for someone who says, this is my system? For example, oftentimes people will say, well, here's my system. With blackjack, it's close to 50-50. So this is what I'm told. So what I do is I make one bet, and then if I lose, I double the bet for the next hand. And then if I lose, I double the bet. And then eventually I'm going to win, and I'm going to win bigger. Now, I tried the math on that, and it didn't really seem to work out to me. I mean, how does that sound to you? And are there these so-called systems that the kind of amateur gambler can utilize?
In the long run, none of those types of systems will work. So this type of system, what it does is it allows you to post a win a lot of the time. Usually it's a small win. But then upon occasion, you'll lose 9 bets in a row. And if if you went from 10 to 20 to 40 to 80 to 160 and up from there, I mean, pretty soon you're at 2,000, 3,000 a hand or the table limit, and you just can't recover from it.
That's exactly the numbers that I came up with. So, last thing, in your experience, are casinos best left to just for fun? Is it really just a place to stay away from if your real goal is just to make money?
Yeah, I mean, if your real goal is to try and make money gambling, you need to either learn how to count cards, or one of the other methods that are legitimately give you an advantage. I mean, other games like poker, where you're playing against other opponents, are definitely beatable. Sports betting, if you're really good, you can make some money there as well. It's difficult because the house's edge is pretty big there. But other than that, I think it's just best saying, okay, I'm going to go to Vegas and I've got this much money, and if I lose it, that's fine, and if I win, that's great. I had a good weekend.
Yeah, I think I'm glad my producer took that line of thought a couple of years ago when he just said, you know what, I'm just losing every single time. I think I'm done with it. Martin Butterick, a former professional gambler, ran a gambling team. Really great to speak with you today.
Thanks, David.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Let's answer some questions, Lewis. Why not? It is Friday, and we like to answer audience questions. Send them in. However, you know how to get a hold of us. Dylan wrote in. Dylan says you guys often talk about foods you like and foods that aren't healthy, foods that are healthy. But what are the worst dishes or foods that you've had? What about the worst restaurants? I generally, Lewis, if I go out to eat, I have a pretty good sense of what I'm going to like. So I don't really have situations where I order something that I don't like. I know what foods I like, and I sort of have a sense of, oh, I might like this preparation or this item. So I can't think of particular things I don't like. I mean, generally speaking, I don't like roast beef. I've had one good roast beef sandwich, but I just don't understand the concept of roast beef as a thing, and I just don't like it.
Okay, that's fair. Things I don't like. Specific foods I don't like. Boiled meats.
Right.
Boiled meats I am repulsed by.
But what's an example of that?
Corned beef.
You don't like corned beef?
No. It's terrible. I just meats should not be boiled unless you have no other way to cook them.
Okay.
In my opinion, boiled meats is a big one. Yeah. That's so. Well, what about restaurants? What about just a really bad restaurant experience?
So I've had some. If you follow me on Yelp, you can see I've had some unique and horrifying restaurant experiences. Everything from food that appeared to be rancid to, I mean, just everything imaginable. But most of those are sort of like one-off individual restaurants where something just went wrong. I do remember years and years ago, someone I knew wanted to go to an Olive Garden. And I essentially had no choice but to go. And it was an unmitigated disaster. I mean, the pasta appeared to not even really be pasta. It was sort of like a mush of some kind. And of course, the people used to go crazy. I don't even know what they have anymore. But for the unlimited breadsticks, which were quite foul, if I say so myself. And the thing is, it wasn't cheap. There were local mom and pop Italian restaurants nearby that cost the same or less as Olive Garden. Yet for whatever reason, this person insisted that Olive Garden is the place to go. That was not a good experience. And I know a couple people recently who were roped into going to Applebee's, and they also said that there was almost nothing that was even remotely reasonable, that someone ordered a steak. And although they believed that it was a meat product, it was not of a
consistency?
A consistency that they identified with anything resembling meat, yeah.
It was not a consistency consistent with what we would call meat.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I've also had some bad experience. One bad experience at Olive Garden because I didn't go back afterwards.
No, of course.
It was, my pasta dish was supposed to have vegetables in it and stuff and peppers. There was one square of pepper, about half an inch by half an inch.
Yeah.
And maybe 2 little pieces of tomato.
Right.
And that was those were the vegetables in my pasta and vegetable dish. And it was a disaster. There have been times when I've been traveling and you get a cheap meal somewhere.
Right.
And sometimes you get what you pay for. Sometimes you just want to cheap out and the food isn't that great. But recently in Boston, I went to a place that just opened with a friend, and they had this food truck, putting in quotes, which was not really a food truck.
It was sort of like just a temporary solution to the fact that their kitchen hadn't opened yet.
Yeah, it was a mini kitchen in a completely stationary truck that was not mobile at all. So it wasn't a food truck. It was their kitchen. And I ordered a jerk chicken sandwich, and...
This clip is a gold mine, by the way, for the video that segment producer John is working on.
Yeah, it was essentially just not too far removed from just cooked chicken in some bread. It was so bad. You're
making notes, right, John?
Completely flavorless. Yeah, completely flavorless and bad. That was a bad one.
Yeah. But I will mention 2 items I generally don't like. Cauliflower. Love broccoli. Not a fan of its white cousin, cauliflower, and I am not a fan of kasha. And if you've ever grown up in a Jewish household or been to any number of Jewish-related events, you would know that kasha releases a very distinctive smell when it is being cooked, and it is not appetizing.
Yeah, I'm not a fan either. I do like cauliflower. It has to be cooked the right way.
Say that again? How did you say that?
Cauliflower.
Cauliflower.
You call it cauliflower. I was going to mention the way you were saying it.
Really?
And I don't hear people call it cauliflower. You sound like Obama when you say it.
Cauliflower.
Cauliflower. John?
All right.
I'm right.
What?
Cauliflower.
Okay. Well, I don't like cauliflower. Jones wrote in saying, lately I've been going to weddings frequently and I rarely have a good time. Have you been to any terrible weddings? What was so bad about it? What do you usually do at weddings? Yeah, I mean, I am at the point where I am going to a lot of weddings. I have 3 in the next 2 months, 3 or 4 in the next 2 months I'm going to. When I go to a wedding where the person getting married is a good friend of mine and a lot of my friends are there, it's the best time, right? I mean, you see people you often don't see. You see people from high school or college or whatever, people who you don't live near anymore. It's a really, really great time. However, I've been to weddings where I barely know anybody, where, you know, it's like my girlfriend's family friend's kid's wedding or something like that, and I know nobody at all. And it's a pretty miserable experience. And I don't really know what to do. I mean, I basically just sit there, and I've not figured out a way to make it passable. And oftentimes, you know, you sort of go in and I say, oh, I'll just talk to people. But everybody knows each other, and you know, nobody really wants to talk to this random person that nobody knows. And I don't know. I find weddings can be some of the most fun events, and they can also be horrible.
I am fortunate in that I've never been a +1 at a wedding.
Okay.
So any wedding I have gone to is because I have been invited to that wedding. I know a lot of people. I'm pretty sure every time it's been open bar, and a good experience every time.
I don't want to say too much, but I've been to 2 weddings that exploded and just, you know, they went down in flames, where one of the 2 individuals getting married ended up crying multiple times during the reception. And weddings can go sour pretty bad when the people getting married appear to be miserable.
Oh, they were. You think they were crying because they were not tears of joy?
Oh, no. So I'm distinguishing one of the people getting married at 2 different weddings I went to was visibly upset about something about how the evening was going, and they ended up crying, and it really puts a damper on the wedding when that happens.
Yes. Well, I haven't seen that happen, but it would do that.
Ami wrote to me, said, I can't seem to ever clear my email inbox. How do you deal with yours? What's your process? How many unread emails do you have in your inbox? I have about 5 unread emails in my inbox. I wouldn't say I've mastered it, but I'm pretty good with my email inbox. Even though I get hundreds of emails per day, I've set up a few systems. One involves responding to emails at specific times of the day. I will sort of, you know, in the business I'm in, there can be breaking emails, an invitation to be on some show or who knows what, where you need to sort of be aware of what's going on a regular basis. But most emails I respond to at certain times of day. I've already said I can't respond to every viewer email, so I try to at least read the emails that come in, but I don't even think of trying to respond to all of those. And I've also used filtering systems, Lewis, and this is my latest thing. There's a bunch of different emails I get that I sort of consider to be, these are guest pitches. These are guests that a publicist wants us to interview. Those are automatically taken out of my inbox and put in a specific folder by default. I have newsletters I'm on, you know, sort of like, for example, Talking Points Memo or Crooks and Liars, whatever, all these different websites that have potential leads for stories for us. Those automatically go into a folder. So when I say, okay, I'm going to look at stories for tomorrow's show, I usually have 10, 20, or 30 emails waiting for me there. So I actually am not having a problem right now dealing with email. There was a time where I had 100 or 200 unread and emails, old emails, not properly flagged for follow-up, but I'm sort of all over it right now.
That's great. I have never needed a system, because if I wake up in the morning and I have 15 emails, I'm shocked.
Right.
I'm taken aback. I mean, normally 10 is a lot for me.
Sure.
And so this is just not something I deal with. I very quickly move them to the 1 or 2 other folders where I've organized things.
Or just delete them straight away, which I've recommended against, but yeah.
I don't, only very few emails I do that with now. Usually one's from you. But yeah, this isn't a problem for me, so I don't have to deal with that.
All right. I don't know if that's useful to Ami, but that's the situation I'm dealing with. And sometimes I'll see people post on Facebook that they've successfully cleared a 15,000 email inbox. And I can't even conceive of that. I mean, I don't even understand how it could get that bad. I assume if I was somehow completely incapacitated and taken away from email for a long period of time, something like that could happen, and then it would be a real challenge. But I try to keep it clear. That's my goal. We've got a great bonus show coming up for you today. DavidPakman.com/membership is how you sign up. Thanks to everybody who called in. Thanks to all the questions that came in. And we will be back on Monday. No, because that is the 4th of July. We will be back on Tuesday, July 5th.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.